This is Ralph E. Smith, reporter and publisher for GuardianChronicle.com. Welcome to Online, in your mind, and on your radio with OpenLine at WBLS-FM, New York.
OpenLine. This is Brother Fatim Muhammad.
And this is Jennifer Jones-Austin, host of OpenLine,
where we continue to inform, educate, bring you top newsmakers, and make calls to action in the tri-state as we have for over 30 years.
We want to hear from you as we open up the phones for you to speak on the issues important to Black and brown communities.
Tune in and engage Sunday mornings at 8 a.m.
on the station making a difference in our community. 107.5 WBLS.
City employees, it doesn't matter if your stop is Brooklyn Bridge City Hall or Pelham Bay Park. If you're looking for a health plan that puts you first, Metro Plus Health has you covered.
By WBLS, the soul and talk of New York. I'm your brother and host, Brother Fatim, and you already know. I'm not rolling by myself. I am not solo. Riding shotgun this morning, and every Sunday morning with me is the dynamic advocate, brilliant strategist, and the woman I proudly call the sophisticated lady I'm speaking about. None other than Jennifer Jones-Austin, Esquire. Good morning, Sister Jennifer. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good, and I'm thankful. Thank you for blessing me time and time again. Good to be with you. Good to be with all who are listening and who will call in today, and excited about what I know will be a great show. So, happy today. Good to be with you.
All right. Always good to be with you. Now, listen, folks, we're coming in hot today. When I say we got coming in hot, there's a lot on the table to discuss. In about 12 to 13 minutes, we'll reflect on the passing of a Harlem giant, Lloyd A. Williams, president and CEO of the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce and co-founder of Harlem Week, who transitioned this past Tuesday at the age of 80 years of age after a private battle with cancer. And then in the second half of today's Open Line show, we're scheduled to be joined for our monthly check-in with the 40th mayor of Newark, New Jersey, and that is none other than Mayor Ras Baraka. But first, we come back to a guest you last heard from here on Open Line during the Memorial Day weekend. Back then, he was in the heat of the New York City Democratic mayoral primary. Now he's the victor, ready for the general election. I'm talking about New York Assembly member Zohran Mamdani, who will face independent candidates New York City Mayor Eric Adams and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, as well as Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa on Tuesday, November 5th. And I just want to let folks know this is not the appearance where we open up the phone lines, because we give all the candidates a chance to come back as we get closer to the election to come on and talk about their campaign. This is not that visit for New York Assembly member Mamdani. He's coming on to basically kind of thank the folks here. So let me get the Assembly member in. Good morning, Assemblyman Mamdani, and congratulations on your recent primary win. I know your time is short this morning, and I know you wanted to speak directly to the New Yorkers. And my question to you is, what is your message to those who supported you in the primary? And what do you say to those who didn't, but who you like to motivate to join you in November?
Well, Brother Fatim, thank you so much for having me. And it's a pleasure to be on here as well with the incredible Jennifer Jones-Austin. It is always a privilege to come back on Open Line. And to your question, I would say thank you to the New Yorkers who supported me in that primary, who took me from 1% in the polls to winning the election by close to 13 points with the most votes we've ever seen in primary history. And my message to those that didn't vote for me or those that didn't vote at all is that I'm looking to be a mayor for each and every New Yorker. I'm looking to answer the question that Dr. King asked decades ago, which was, what good is having the right to sit at a lunch counter if you cannot afford to buy a hamburger? This is what we call the greatest city in the world, but there are far too many New Yorkers who can't afford to live here. And this is a campaign to make sure that we make the most expensive city in the United States affordable for each and every New Yorker, no matter if they voted for me or not.
Jennifer?
Good to have you here with us, sir. Glad that you're here with us, and we appreciate your calling in and talking to us this morning. So, as your campaign continues to it appears to build momentum. There are many people who I sometimes listen to who, are saying things about you, and I can't figure out whether or not it is like they're spewing rhetoric, they're trying to, create spin. What is, the one issue where you're having the greatest difficulty getting people to understand where you stand, and what do you want us to know about that?
No, I think one of the places of difficulty has been the fact that as we've walked through this election, we've seen it's not just a contest of ideas, it's also one that has to go up against an extraordinary amount of money. In the primary, there was about more than $20 million that was spent against me over that time. And so many of the ads that people heard or the mailers they got in their mailbox, they were attempts to smear and slander this campaign. And so one of the many things I appreciate about being on here on OpenLine is the chance to speak directly to New Yorkers. I think one of those issues happens to be public safety. What I have said is that New Yorkers need not choose between safety and justice. These need to be things that we experience together as one. And in that, recognizing the critical role that police have to play in creating that public safety, and the fact that we have asked those same officers to respond to nearly every failure in the social safety net, a responsibility that makes it nearly impossible to actually address the serious crimes that so many of them signed up to the department to address. And so our vision for public safety is one where we empower the police to focus on those shootings and murders and respond to those crimes, while also creating a department of community safety, one that would finally cohere the crises of mental health, of homelessness, of victim services under one department, that we would then be able to deploy dedicated teams of mental health professionals to respond to a mental health crisis.
And I was going to go that direction, but that's what you're talking about. And it's amazing that someone that endorsed you is coming up, is scheduled to be on at the second half of our broadcast. It's Newark Mayor Ras Baraka, and he had implemented the same thing, that when it deals with mental health 911 calls, they want to implement and dispatch social workers out there that can be some type of mediation there, that it doesn't escalate to someone getting hurt. So we like that idea. Let me bring this up and kind of springboard us. You said you're speaking to all New Yorkers. It's similar, remember, in a city as diverse as New York City is, winning in November will require building strong coalitions. How do you plan to energize and turn out voters across the board, but especially in the Black, Latino, and Jewish communities, to ensure they see your campaigns as speaking directly to their needs and priorities?
I think the responsibility I have is to make the case directly to those New Yorkers. I can't afford to just sit in my laurels and say, well, we won the primary, we're going to run the same race now. My job is to go and speak to New Yorkers, especially those that have concerns, or those that maybe have heard a mischaracterization of our campaign, and tell them what it is I'm actually fighting for. The other day I was with Assemblymember Khalil Anderson. We went out to the Rockaways. We were touring small businesses. And a woman came up to me and she said, I'm a registered Republican. Are you looking to have my vote as well? I said, absolutely. I'm looking to win the vote of each and every New Yorker. And she said, what are you doing out here? I said, I'm here to share my plan for cutting fines and fees for small businesses by 50%, for creating a mom and pop czar so that we can actually help those businesses navigate this bureaucracy. And for asking the question of, if we tell New Yorkers that we believe that they should open a small business, then why are we asking a barbershop to fill out 24 forms, go to 7 agencies and up to 11 different in-person events in order to be able to register that same business? These are some of the questions we have to ask so that we make sure that as we're letting these mega corporations make a killing, we're not having city government suffocate the small businesses that are the lifeblood of the city.
Jennifer?
Right on. So school is right around the corner for New York City children and their families. And, we hear a lot about public safety. We hear a lot about affordability, as we should. What are your thoughts? People may want to hear from you about education. What are your thoughts about the education and what we need to be, the education of students here in New York City, and what we need to be doing?
This is one of the greatest responsibilities and also opportunities for the mayor of this city. We are talking about the largest school system, K through 12 in America, and it's also the most segregated one. And as you were saying, Jennifer, there are many issues that schools have to deal with that are reflective of larger crises in our city. Today, 500,000 children in our city go to sleep hungry every night. This is the 9th consecutive year of 100,000 students or more being homeless in our city, and those are systemic issues we have to confront. But what we also have to ensure is that each and every one of those students gets a world-class education. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we need to ensure that every dollar we are investing in our education system is one that is going towards the classroom. Because for far too long, if you look at the way that we spend our money in the Department of Education, there's too much of that same dollars that are going towards contracting or consulting, when it needs to be focused on our teachers, on our students, on our actual education system at hand.
I know your time is short, but I want to leave with this because you led in Assemblymember Mandani with Dr. King this past week, this past Wednesday, August 6, 2025, it was the anniversary of the 1965 signing of the Voting Rights Act into law. Coming up August 28th, here in New York City, Wall Street National Action Network, led by Reverend Al Sharpton, Jennifer Jones-Austin, you're part of National Action Network, will also be leading a march because of we see that voting rights and other things that we have achieved for Black Americans and other Americans here are under attack. Do you support this march, and what message do you send out to the folks as we head towards this march coming up August 28th here in New York City and Wall Street?
I absolutely support this march, and I support it because we have to remember that progress is not simply something that is won, it is something that has to be sustained. And we see in so much of the actions being taken across this country today an attack on that legacy and the need for us to stand up for it and to make clear that this is something we not only believe in, this is something that we will also march for. And I think that as we think about what it means to honor that legacy, ultimately it has to mean actions and not just words. And I will be proud to be a part of that same march.
Wow. Okay, well, I know your time is short. We appreciate you coming on, and we look forward to having you back.
Sure do.
Where we could open up the phones like you did last time. You came on Memorial Day and you spoke with the callers. You took all the questions that were presented to you, and we look forward to having you back. New York Assembly member Zoran Mandani. He is the Democratic nominee for New York City mayor. And we look forward to speaking with you coming up as we get closer to the general election.
Thank you so much, Brother Faster. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This was a pleasure. I look forward to returning. And I do just want to end by extending my deep condolences about the passing of Lloyd Williams, a true New York City icon. And I hope to uphold his legacy in the weeks, months, and years to come.
Appreciate those words. Thank you. New York Assembly member Zoran Mandani. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. That takes us right into the next segment, Jennifer, as we turn our attention to the life and legacy of a true Harlem giant. And folks, we'll take your phone calls, 212-545-1075, as we focus on the life and legacy of Lloyd A. Williams, 212-545-1075. Our late brother, Lloyd A. Williams, co-founder of Harlem Week and longtime president and CEO of the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, who transitioned on August 5th at the age of 80 after a private battle with cancer. He was surrounded by loved ones. He passed just days into Harlem Week celebration he helped bring to life more than 50 years ago. This brother's legacy was transformative. What started as a single-day community event under his leadership became the month-long, world-renowned Harlem Week, drawing hundreds of thousands of people, celebrating culture, boosting small businesses, and attracting tourism and investment that helped make Harlem one of New York City's crown jewels. A proud son of 120th Street, Williams' commitment to Harlem ran deep, and he never stopped pouring back into the village that raised him. And though we mourn his passing, Sister Jennifer, Harlem Week will go on. Organizers say this year's theme, Celebrate Our Magic, is a perfect reflection of his vision, his love, and his belief in Harlem's greatness. City leaders, business owners, and everyday residents are calling him a visionary and a rock for the community. Funeral arrangements are forthcoming, but his life work will be honored every time Harlem Week lights up these streets. and Sister Jennifer joining us now to reflect on Brothers Lloyd impact are two giants of our own. First, our WBLS family member, radio legend, and president, CEO of Make the Grade Foundation, Dr. Bob Lee. And also joining us is one of my heroes in Black Talk Radio, the legendary Imhotep Gary Bird, host of Express Yourself, which is coming up at 10 a.m. right here on WBLS. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, brother.
Good morning, Dr. Bob Lee. All right. So I'm going to start with Dr. Bob Lee first. Well, first, before I go to you, Dr. Bob Lee, and then Imhotep Gary Bird, let me go to my co-host, Jennifer Jones-Austin, to get your words on the life and legacy of Lloyd Williams.
Well, first, let me just say good morning to these two distinguished gentlemen. And I've never spoken to you all online, but I just want everybody to know that in addition to Brother Fatine and Bob Slade, Pickett, I stand on your shoulders, and I'm honored to be a part of the WBLS family. And as I said, to just continue to try to do my best in the spirit that you all have. Concerning Lloyd Williams, I am not everybody who listens knows that I'm not a Harlemite, but I have done some meaningful work, I believe, in the Harlem community, and it was never done without first engaging with Lloyd. I understood, as most people who had done some work in Harlem, any little bit of work, that you had to first stop by the Harlem Chamber of Commerce and spend some time talking with him to get direction, to get advice, to get guidance, to make sure that you were doing the work that was representative of the reflective of the needs of the community and also responsive to the concerns being raised. And so I gained a lot of wisdom, a lot of guidance on several initiatives when I engaged with him. And I will tell you that my first encounters with him, I was intimidated because he was quite stern and he held no punches. But as I came to know him, he leaned into me and he supported me. I think that he saw my sincerity, and I'm ever grateful for all of the teachings that he bestowed upon me to help me do the work that I seek to do as best I can. And I will long remember him for being an example to us all, to essentially epitomizing what it means to love your community and not accept anything less than the best for your community. That's how I remember.
Well said, Sister Jennifer. Let me start with Dr. Bob Lee, and then I'll turn it over to Imhotep Gary Bird. Dr. Bob, you worked alongside Lloyd Williams for many years, both on Harlem Week and in the community, to uplift different events and issues. What was it about Lloyd's leadership style and his personal touch that made him so respected, not just as an organizer, but as a man who could unite people from all walks of life?
Well, he was a person, Jennifer said he was very stern. He was, but he would keep you focused. If you came to a meeting late, he would call you out. If you tried to doze off in a meeting, he would call you out. He would include your name in a sentence that he's talking about. But he just knew how to keep people together. I remember during the first, not the first days of Harlem Week, but the first few years of Harlem Week, Janie Washington was our program, our music director or promotion director, and she had our vehicles out there, and we had long lines of people receiving WBLS hats. And I remember it was just in front of the Harlem State Office building. Those were the early days. That was Harlem Week, just in front of the Harlem State Office building. But this man would come out on stage and just organize the whole thing. He would say what he was going to say. He would let people know what we were going to do, and he laid the program out right there on stage. And people just followed that program, and we knew what we were doing every year with this guy. I remember when my mom passed away, and he gave me a call. I got a personal call from Lloyd Williams, and he knew I was like kind of down in the dumps. And he said, "Did your mother cook well?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Did your mother buy you good things or treat you right?" I said, "Yeah." And then he went off into left field somewhere, and he said, "Did your mother beat your ass?" I said, "Yeah." And we both started laughing. He said, it just took me out of that state. Yeah,
That's
it took me to just redirect my thoughts, and I was like, wow. But he was always the person that you could call on, or he would call you and say, hey, Bob, you got to come uptown and you got to meet me. Come and meet me Tuesday, around 3 o'clock. And he would do it like that. But we have a long-term relationship, not only personally, but with the radio station. WBLS was purchased in 1974 or 72 with LIB first. And in that same building, right next to, across the street from Sylvia's, by the Red Rooster, there was a building, I think it was the Liberty Mutual building, but the Harlem Week was in that building, along with Percy Sutton and Hal Jackson. So, yeah, we lived together uptown, we broke bread together, and we still have that wonderful relationship, even with Gary Bird, with Lloyd Williams being on with Gary Bird on Sunday.
Exactly. That's why I said I had to have the legendary Imhotep Gary Bird and Bob Lee. Thank you for those voices. To stay with us, brother. I'm going to turn it over to Imhotep Gary Bird. Brother Imhotep, Lloyd Williams was a frequent voice on Express Yourself, as Dr. Bob Lee said, and someone you knew personally for decades. From your vantage point, what was the true scope of his impact, not just on Harlem, but on New York City and the larger Black community? And how do you see his vision continuing to shape our future?
Well, I think you used the word a giant a few moments ago, and essentially there are certain individuals who fall in the category of what I call GBEs, my own designation, giants of the Black experience, and he was absolutely that. One of the things that happened over the course of my life and time is that, being from WWRL to WLIB and so forth, I was at any number of different events over the years that involved order that were put on by the GHCC and so forth. And that led up to me having the opportunity of working with him directly. And so I saw some of what has been said already about, his organizational ability, his sense of vision, and certainly his sense of his particular place in history and our place as a people. Lots of people who see Lloyd, I heard Jennifer say, intimidated. That's a great word, certainly for any number of people who interface with him. But he was bringing so much to the table at the same time, in addition to his own, huge intellect and consciousness. He also was a godson of El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X, which he has talked about on the air. But he also was mentored by the late Percy Sutton as well. So that when you're seeing the GHCC and its particular, long history, it's important to recognize that Percy Sutton was in the leadership vanguard of that and ultimately saw and chose Lloyd Williams to take it on into the future, which he has done, in an amazing way. And there's a place where it's a. I heard several people talk about dealing with the chairman emeritus, the late Percy Sutton, and they would talk about a similar kind of dynamic. When you dealt with him, you had to have your focus in place because he was very focused and would take you right into whatever the situation was, but also always had the ability to get into what was underneath. That's there at the organizational level, the events and so forth. But he also had that, and this is what I heard Dr. Bob Lee indicate, he also had that in terms of your own personal life. For me, on the personal level, this is someone who was there for me in major deaths that occurred in my life, and where I was, in a state of reeling in any number of instances in terms of things that were happening on that level, and who was there every single time. Anytime I ever needed any level of support in the things that I was trying to do to help loved ones, who in many instances were in situations where they had passed, family situations, so forth. He was there every single time without hesitation. And one particular instance that I recall is some of you may remember J.D. Livingston, who was my longtime producer, going all the way back to WLIB in terms of GBE. When JD became ill and whatnot, one of the things that we weren't totally clear about was the fact that he had some issues related to citizenship that were not familiar to us. And in context to it, he's from Guyana, but there were other issues going on along that immigration front. And when I went to Brother Lloyd at the point that I was aware of what was happening and sat with him, and this is an example of how he operated. He said, say this again. I picked the phone. He picked up the phone, called Harlem Hospital, spoke to the heads of Harlem Hospital, and they were right down the street, of course, from GHCC. He said, go meet with them right now. By the time I got down to the Harlem Hospital, there was a room full of executives from Harlem Hospital waiting for me. And they said something I will never forget as long as I live. They all turned, looked at me, and said to me, whatever he needs, we got him. For what y'all have done for this community, we are with you all the way. And they were. And he was the person who could make those connections locally, nationally, internationally, and in literally just a heartbeat, and did it all day, every day.
Imhotep, Gary Bird, those words resonate, and it just touched me because of the giant that Lloyd Williams was and the legacy he leaves. But when you mention J.D. Livingston, a lot of folks don't know. Imhotep knows this because even when folks are looking from the outside in, they don't understand what's going on in the inside. When OpenLine was at 98.7 KISS FM, and we were doing OpenLine, and Imhotep, Gary Bird, and J.D. Livingston was doing their thing on WBLS. Folks don't know that, you know, behind the scenes, if we couldn't do something, I call JD up, or JD would call me up. You know,
Right.
You know, my cousin, you know, Frankie Adams, you know, he's known as the Kingologist, something, a name that Bob Slade bestowed upon him.
Yeah.
And I remember not using my cousin so that you could have him on your show to talk about Dr. King. And see, those are the things that are about bridge building. And we talk about it takes a village to raise a child. Well, there's chiefs in these villages, and Lloyd Williams was one of those chiefs. And I remember getting a chance to work during COVID, and I remember that that Lloyd Williams and Brother Volzer Rivers would come on OpenLine for a segment to talk about COVID. And I remember there was a little back and forth between me and Lloyd Williams in the sense of the guests, because, you know, he didn't know how well versed I was in the sense of doctors, not only in New York City, but across the country dealing with COVID at that particular time. But I gained so much respect for Brother Lloyd Williams, not only for the work that he was doing at that particular time, but to find out the great work that he had laid the foundation for Harlem Week, and doing those things, like you said, making those phone calls to Harlem Hospital and doing the things that people didn't hear about. There's things that you did not hear about. And this is what makes us a great people. Sometimes you're not always in the front. Yeah. Sometimes you're not going to hear of the things that is being done because a lot of great people move silently and quietly.
I got a call from Lloyd at the time of the COVID crisis, and I was really on my way home, and he called and said, listen, he says, I need you to connect with a brother, Dr. John Palmer, who was also on the GHCC board, formerly head of Harlem Hospital, that whole thing. And he said to me, you two need to hook up. And Dr. John Palmer literally helped to navigate us, along with Dr. Kamal Kakai, but Dr. Palmer, especially here in New York, to navigate us through the challenges of COVID on a regular level. And we still obviously do that kind of work today with some of what we're facing and whatnot. But he was that person who could make those connections, you know, that you needed in any particular issue or that the community needed. And it was what he was doing every day. It was literally his life work.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you mentioned Dr. Kakai, because a lot of folks don't know that Dr. Kakai is not only a medical doctor, he's also on the holistic side as well.
Absolutely.
And when you bring that balance to the table, I remember Sister Queen of Fua being on Heal Thyself and coming on our broadcast and saying, Fatine, I'm not a medical doctor. You need to bring a medical doctor that also deals with the holistic side. But real quick, before we let you go, let's take a caller real quick before we end this segment. Let's go to line 2 and bring Charlene calling us from Brooklyn this morning. Good morning, Charlene. Welcome to Open Line. Your thoughts this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a first-time caller.
Okay, let me ring the bell for you. First-time caller. Go ahead.
I'm a little nervous. I
okay.
just want to
Take
say
your
good
time.
morning to Sister Jennifer, Austin, and to you, Brother Fatigue. Good morning.
Good morning.
But I just want to say I listen to BLS every Sunday. And I was a long-time listener since I was a teenager. But I want to say my condolences to Brother Lloyd Williams' family. I'm going to miss him. I love hearing him on Sunday, and especially talking about his grandson. That's one thing I'm going to miss.
Yeah, without question. There's a place where Brother Lloyd always lifted up family. And in context to his grandson, as a Duke Ellington say, he loved him madly. No question about it.
There you go. And I thank you, Charlene. I'm going to give final words, and our OpenLine online member, Sabrina Lamb, has just texted me and said that Volza Rivers just lost his wife this week. I believe it's Arlene Rivers. Are you familiar with this, Imhotep?
I knew that she was ill. I had not heard that she passed. Wow.
Okay, Sabrina just said that. Let me give Dr. Bob Lee and Imhotep Gary Bird, because Imhotep Gary Bird will be coming up at 10 a.m. with Express Yourself. And of course, you know he will continue this conversation on Lloyd Williams, The Life and Legacy. But let me give Dr. Bob Lee and Imhotep Gary Bird final words. Dr. Bob Lee?
Yeah, we were dealing with Harlem Week yesterday. We did the Percy Sutton 5K run walk, and now the Hazel Dukes walk. And we were talking about Percy Sutton, and because he's right across the street from the Percy Sutton School, and how they both collaborated. But a true visionary, always bringing people together to move together in the same direction for a common cause. And that's what was special about Lloyd Williams. And, he's surely going to be missed for sure. So we're going to be up at Grant's tomb later on from about 1 to 8 o'clock at night. So we'll see everybody up there. And, of course, we're going to be celebrating the legacy of the late Lloyd A. Williams.
There you go. Imhotep Gary Bird, your final words, at least on Open Line. I know you got your show again, Express Yourself, coming up at 10 a.m. right here on BLS.
Brother Marco Nobles from the GHC will join us, and of course my brother Herb Boyd, who had a very close relationship with Lloyd Williams, the GHCC, will be there for us to talk about the backdrop and history and so forth. But I guess in closing, I would just say that there's a place where Brother Lloyd always talked about the issue of unification, maintaining unity, and stressed the issue of us helping each other. And as much as people talk about the Harlem Week event itself, it is certainly clearly culture, but it is also in the context of something you and I were just talking about a moment ago in terms of this issue of holistic health. And a big priority for Harlem Week is health, and that is a part of that whole agenda. So for Brother Lloyd, it was culture, consciousness, and communications. And I think in the context of legacy, he was a brother who understood the legacy that he was walking within and ultimately did his role to lift us up. And in that sense, I think I was talking to Ade and to Marco, and I was saying, hey, as an ancestor, he perhaps is maybe even more powerful on the other side.
Yes, he is.
And being stern and intimidating, as Sister Jen.
You know what I'm saying?
Imhotep Gary Bird, Dr. Bob Lee, these are two legends in their own right. Thank you both for joining us this morning here on Open Line. Thank you both, gentlemen. Okay?
You brothers.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course, be blessed.
Thank you.
Love you both.
Thank you. Love you
too.
Okay.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We're scheduled to be speaking with the 40th mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Mayor Ras Baraka. When we come back, we'll take this quick break. You're listening to Open Line right here on 107.5 WBLS.
This is Ralph E. Smith, reporter and publisher of GuardianChronicle.com. GuardianChronicle.com pays our respect to Mr. Lloyd Williams, a diamond in the community, a man that gave his life to building others and the community of Harlem. From the GuardianChronicle.com family, wishing you peace, blessings, great health, prosperity, and all that God has ready for you. Take care. God bless you and your family.